Good evening, everyone. Good evening. We are about to get started with the talking session. All right. So everyone, thank you for joining us for TEDCO's Baltimore City Pop-up at City Garage, where they turn thinkers into doers. I am your host for tonight. I am filling in for our illustrious CEO of TEDCO, Troy LaMelle Stovall. I am Tammi Thomas, who is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer at TEDCO. Before we begin our discussion with our special guest speakers, I want to acknowledge one of my colleagues here tonight, Elizabeth Mazzari, who is TEDCO's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. Elizabeth, can you raise your hand, please? Okay, so DEI is a focus of our discussion for this evening. Shelonda Stokes is the CEO of Downtown Partnership of Baltimore. And we also have with us tonight Delali Dzirasa, who is the CEO of Fearless. All right, so let's get started with a few fun questions to get to know Delali and Shelonda a little bit better. So the first question goes to Shelonda. Shelonda, what was your first car and did you name her?
The sad part about this is I'm going to date myself, and they're going to know how old I really am, because my first car doesn't even exist anymore. My first car was a Ford EXP. I know they don't. I know. I know. And yes, her name was Bianca.
Bianca.
Okay, well, we have an interesting question for you too, Delali. Yep. What and where was your first concert?
Probably shouldn't have been in high school, but it was in high school. Backyard band, Washington, D.C., I think my sophomore year. Wasn't supposed to be there, but we snuck out and went anyway, had a great time.
Okay, so this question is for all of us animal lovers, and this goes to both of you. Scooby-Doo or Garfield?
Oh, hands down, Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo, without a doubt.
Oh, yes.
Okay, just for everybody that's out in the audience, Troy is a dog lover, and half of TEDCO are dog lovers, and the other half are cat lovers. So Troy is the dog person, I'm the cat person, so our guest speakers have failed the test tonight. Okay, so now let's get down to some serious questions.
Yep.
Since we are taping our session this evening, this question is for someone who may be on a similar journey as the two of you. So briefly, tell us your background that led you to leading your organizations.
So I guess I'll start. It's hard for me to talk briefly, but it's also hard to talk about all of this without talking about my why. Anybody who knows me knows that I could not love this city anymore. I liken myself to her, and part of it is because of my upbringing. There were ebbs and flows, and we were extremely poor. And so when you talk about the background that got here, that's somewhat serendipitous, I watched my mother not eat, and I knew that whatever happened, I would get and follow a career path that I would never have to worry about that again, and technology was a part of that. So at the age of 14, I was cleaner in the Inner Harbor, went to the best high school in Baltimore, whoop, whoop, Poly, gotta shout it out. Graduated from Morgan State University, engineering as a career path. And what was so great about it, just looking at sort of the intentionality around it, was when I graduated, just with my undergraduate degree, I came out with 7 job offers with some of the big. So it was IBM, it was HP, it was all of that. And I worked for a long time. Well, I guess at that point it felt long. In all of those, GE, HP, all of those. And I got to a place in my career where I think if DEI was as embraced as it was at that time, I probably would have stayed. But I got to a place that I felt like I had these glass, what they call them, the handcuffs, the golden handcuffs, to where you're in an environment, you can't really grow, and all of that. And I knew that I wanted to create opportunities for people so that they wouldn't have to go through some of those same things. So I'll pause on that piece because I know you want to hold for some of the other things, but that was sort of the journey. It was understanding my passion, understanding my why, working in places where I could grow and learn and build along the way, and then ultimately for where I am having one of the best jobs in my life.
That's powerful. Now, Delali,
I gotta
can you follow that?
Thanks, Shelonda. And you picked two people that don't know how to be brief, but I will try. So my background, my parents divorced when I was fairly young. So my mother raised us as well. I'm the youngest of three boys, and we didn't have a lot growing up. And so my mom, her thing was, all right, you want those new shoes? You want to go out? You want that? Fine. You've got to go work for it. So we hustled, right? We hustled and did everything door to door. Newspaper routes, walking dogs, washing cars, cutting grass, you name it. We did literally any business you can think of, we have done. We've had every hustle. So it's funny even watching that path kind of play forward, right? And you see the squeegee kids, like that was me, right? I was the one hustling and trying to just find something to make it happen, to get something that I needed. And so went through high school, grew up in Maryland, so Tacoma Park, Silver Spring area. Went to college at UMBC. Did not want to go to UMBC. It was the last place in the country I wanted to go. Both my older brothers, who are both very athletic and much smarter than me, were there. So I wanted to run away, and that didn't work very well. And studied computer engineering. And it was at UMBC where it really started to connect a lot of dots for me. I'd always had a passion in three things: business, technology, and people. The business side, I talked about the hustle. I love being able to work hard and create and earn and make opportunities. And so that was always really exciting to me. On the tech side, I loved when I learned that I could make a machine do my work for me. That was great, right? And so I could program something to do my homework and do chores for me. It was awesome. And so that just unlocked a new world in my eyes. In the people side, it was baked to me fairly early. My mom's a nurse, retired nurse, and so we did all of our community service we had to in nursing homes and visit here and serve people and all of that. And all of that, I didn't realize then, but it was becoming a part of who I was. And so those three things, fast forward, graduated, and I worked at a couple small companies that had just great mentors along the way. And I went in day one into my first job, and I told them I want to start a company. I was like, I don't know when, I don't know how, but I want to come here, and I would love to learn. I had a list. I said I love office hours. I was on the CEO, and he's probably thinking, who is this crazy kid? But he embraced it. I had a great recommendation actually from Dr. Grabowski, so shout out to him for opening a door for me, and it changed my life. It changed my life. And that CEO and that company made good on their offer, and they trained me, and they taught me the ropes, and gave me the platform, the ability to be able to do what I'm doing today. So fast forward. Fearless is born. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but that's the story of kind of how I got there.
Thank you so much. Now, I do want to go back into your background for one small piece, because Troy would have done this. Both of you hail from the National Society of Black Engineers, NSBE. Can you talk a little bit about that, just for those that might not know about that program and how it has made an impact in your life?
So for those who are not familiar with the National Society of Black Engineers, because you know TEDCO, you know a type of organization like that. So for, people who were in college that wanted to make sure that you had like-minded people that were excited about engineering and technology, where you could be a nerd but not really feel like one, it was that type of organization for us. And so we did, I didn't pledge, I didn't have the pleasure of pledging, but we did step shows. So it was the fun aspect of it, but we worked hard. And you talk about during that time in college, my degree is electrical engineering, we didn't have spring break. We didn't have all of those things that people had. And so NSBE gave us this family type feeling where people wanted you to succeed, where they were willing to support you, where employers came. So when I talk about where those 7 job offers came from, it came from NSBE and what we were able to do in building and growing together.
Yeah, and NSBE played a big role in my life, and just growing up and matriculating through UMBC. Doc had a saying where it was like, it's cool to be smart, right? And it was a thing that we were surrounded by everyone that was trying to excel. And so to sit in this space and you had so many smart, talented Black people and people from all different races and backgrounds that just wanted to succeed, and we pushed each other. I had a really good friend, actually Tina Williams. She's got a great company as well. In undergrad, we weren't rivals. She always beat me, so I'm not sure if that's a rivalry. But we'd pull all-nighters all the time. We get the test back. I mean, we would go in studying, and the results would come back, and I'd get mine like, oh, I got a 95. What'd you get? She's like, oh, I did okay, right? And she'd always kind of tuck it away, and I'm like, okay, I mean, what'd you get though? And 96, she always beat me. And so, but being around that kind of energy just forced all of us to be better and to be better and to strive for excellence. And so it was just a huge part of what fueled my engineering passion, and it fueled creativity and spark and hustle and all those things. So it was a great experience.
Great. Well, Troy met his wife through the NSBE program, and I even have a little connection. My daughter fell in love with chemical engineering through the NSBE junior chapter, and in fact, she's becoming a nuclear propulsion person in Navy off of that.
Well, and as an aside, I did meet my husband. I didn't know that we were talking about matchmaking. It is good for that as well.
Okay, all right, so that was a serious question. So here's the next serious question. Our focus this evening is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Shelonda and Delali, share with us what your organizations are doing about making an impact for those in Greater Baltimore who need it, especially in regards to DEI.
Want me to start? So for those of you who don't know, Downtown Partnership of Baltimore is really about marketing clean and safe of downtown, right? And so we're the organization that is supposed to be on top of what the city does, on top of what other agencies do, really gathering partnership is in our name and working together to help make our Baltimore something that we're proud of. What's tough, and I know everybody, as you think about some of the crime and some of the things that are happening within our city right now, if you think and kind of peel back the onion on some of the why, we have an economic challenge within our city. We have a poverty challenge within our city. And so while I love what we're doing with Downtown Partnership, even at the core, when you look at our team members who are on the street that are helping keep it clean, a lot of them are second chance team members. And part of our thought and philosophy behind that is we want to make sure that everybody has a place, everybody has an opportunity to grow. And with that, it's not that we want them to retire from that job. We're working to see how do we elevate, whether it's GED or financial literacy or home ownership and all of these things to help them do it, because we believe that it starts with the base of who we are as an organization. So some of that is the baseline. We have about 100 employees, and our team really rallies around how we can help grow and be supportive. But when you think about our mission holistically in downtown, part of the goal when you look at DE&I as well is how do we make our downtown, and that's our downtown, reflective of the demographics of our city, right? And so you have a predominantly African-American city, and then you look at the ownership and the businesses and all of that, and it's not that. And so one of the things I'm extremely proud of that our organization recently launched is an initiative called Boost. And Boost stands for Black-Owned and Operated Storefront Tenancy. And so if you think about and look at what's happened as a result of COVID, you have an increase in vacancies everywhere. So downtown is no different than that. But part of the thought was, how do we help fill the vacancy, which is our job, because if you have vacant spaces filled, it's safer, it's walkable, all of that. How do we do that with a focus and an intentionality around helping Black and brown businesses? And so with the Boost program, it is really helping provide affordable, and affordable means it could be rent commensurate with sales. It could mean that we worked on a fixed amount, but rent that they could afford. It's seeding those businesses with $50,000. And then it's also, which I think is the best part, and I'm going to highlight this brother right here before I transition it, it's creating a cohort model for those businesses to help ensure their success. And so there's an accelerator that we built for them that gives them marketing, technical assistance, financial, legal, all of those things as a wraparound and like a real curriculum for them to learn. And I credit Delali with a lot of that in us. One, he's the title sponsor of the Boost program, and I don't take that lightly, because when we were looking for a title sponsor, we were looking for somebody who wasn't just somebody who could give us the money, but somebody who believed it, somebody who lives it, somebody who those businesses could look and say, you know what? When he came here and he was 12 people and whatever, now he's 100 people and 40 million, that should be me. And so this for us is not a check the box. It is how do we help grow and scale so that they employ, and then we continue with this whole ecosystem. And so those are just two of the initiatives. I know there are a ton more. You told me we could be brief, but Delali, I mean, I want to use it as an opportunity. We are because of you, and we're following in the footsteps and continuing to learn. And I think that's one of the best things that we could continue to do. There's what you're doing. I know we have Upsurge. We have all of these initiatives that are really wrapping around and rallying around how we grow equitably within the technology space.
Wow, thank you. Shelonda's my idol. I don't know if you knew that. She's my mentor. So before I talk about what we're doing in DEI, I feel like I've got to address like why DEI, right? I mean, we can talk about tactics all of the time, but if it doesn't come from that why, then none of that other stuff will make sense. And I'll use a couple examples, right? We are in a society and in a world where we don't value the contributions of everybody that what everyone brings to the table, right? And so you even use pandemic, for example. Dr. Kazmika Corbett, right? Yep. One of the major brains behind the Moderna vaccine. No one asked what color was the person that made this. I got the shot. We all got the shot. And so when we don't celebrate and we don't tap every part of our society, we all fail. We all lose, right? Shame on all of us, right? If we don't activate everyone in a way that's going to benefit society and benefit the world. I'll give you another example. So I told you my family's really smart. My brother's a heck of a lot smarter than I am. So he recently received an award, and he was named the #1 young neuroscientist on planet Earth in the world, right?
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy, right?
Wow.
But what's amazing is still he is solving problems, right, and working for cures for Alzheimer's that is going to affect our kids and our grandkids, right? It doesn't matter what color he is. If he's not doing that, we all lose, yep. Right? The downtown partnership, when we were looking to come into Baltimore City, we weren't sure how we were trying to find our way. We're 15 people as an organization, young, trying to just make it and get off the ground. Received a grant. They believed in DEI, took a chance. We got an opportunity, and it helped us to relocate in the city, and it pivoted our company into a much different stratosphere. So we thank you. So it comes full circle, right? We thank you. Now named the #1 software developer in the entire region.
Woo-woo!
We are the company that powers the Small Business Administration's website. So if you got a PPP loan through the Lender Gateway, it was our technology that powered that. So millions of companies across the country. And so, but that doesn't happen if you don't invest in every part of our economy. So that's why DI is important to us. So what do we do? Right? Our company, Fearless, we're a digital services firm. We're in the tech space, tech for good. Our mission is to build software with the soul. And vision is to create a world where good software powers things that matter, so that things like education and healthcare and social justice and all these really, really meaty issues that never get the funding, never get the tech, we can go in those spaces and help to accelerate those missions. We often see this play out where we've got, and I talk about this all the time, we got cars that drive themselves. We have the ability to go to the moon and explore Mars, but we can't get internet to West Baltimore, right? There's a fundamental problem with that, right? And that is not a lack of tech, that is a lack of will. And so for us to be able to be focused on getting in those spaces and accelerate the change, that's what we live for. So that's what Fearless is all about.
Okay. So given that, what does Baltimore look like 5 to 7 years from now?
I think that Baltimore is far more equitable. So when you talk about a melting pot, and I'll say Chocolate City, not just in black, but brown and everything else, I think it's a walkable city. I think it's a place, if we continue to grow businesses in the way that we have, it's one that people are not going to be able to get into, because where we have vacancy now, I can see we are on the East Coast going to be one of the last places that people will really be able to get into. So anybody who's looking for real estate, no. but seriously, I see Baltimore as the preferred destination. Any color, any race, people are going to want to be here. It's starting already. So 5 to 7 years from now, I mean, we're at a whole different stratosphere.
What about you, Delali?
I got a little different answer, right? I got a couple options, right? And so first, I don't think Baltimore will be the same.
No.
And I think we've got option number one, which is the disparities will continue to grow, right? We will see them play out.
No, we
at
don't want
levels-
that option.
We don't.
Okay.
No. And we'll see it grow at a clip much faster than it is today, right? The disparity will continue to grow, and this will be a much worse city than it is today. Or we will see a city in which we finally begin to unlock all parts of our economy, right? Listen, if West Baltimore wins, East Baltimore wins, doesn't matter race, all the kids win, the entire city wins, the state wins, right? And the difference is what happens, the difference between option one, number two is really, it's you, right? It is all of us as individuals making a decision, which one do we want? And you can't sit still and you can't stay on the sidelines and be stagnant. You're making no choice is choice A, right? It is the first choice. And so if we don't actively come together, and we can't just rely on Shelonda's of the world, even though she's great. She can't do it alone. So we've got to lean in, we've got to help, we've got to support. But we have the opportunity to build such an amazing city, right? And continue to build on great foundation that's here. All this momentum is moving to the social capital of the world, Equitech City, all of these things, right? And be an example for the world. But we've got that choice and we have that decision to make. I'm picking the second one. And I hope you all join us.
Yep, absolutely. Second one.
Definitely. And TEDCO, where we like to lead innovation to market, we're only picking the second one, especially when we consider all of the fabulous higher education institutions there. You've already mentioned, too, Morgan State University, that's led by President Wilson, and UMBC, that's led by Freeman Rabowski, even though he did just announce his retirement. We don't know. He's going to stay in the area, though, so it's going to still be a beautiful thing. Shelonda had mentioned Upsurge that's here tonight. We know Greater Baltimore Committee. We have too many great partners that's going to make sure that Baltimore succeeds and excels. All right, so our last question. We're going back to fun. Okay, as we wrap up, please share with us one of your favorite spots in Baltimore to take your family. Just one.
You can't have me at the downtown partnership stage.
Trying to get
One
in trouble.
place, right? You are really trying to get me because we have so many staples. I have to say, we have the traditionals, the aquarium, the science center, port. I got to run down the whole list, right, Sanjay? Like we have the whole. I think what's really great about that and what my family is doing right now, we're exploring everything. One of the greatest things that happened with COVID is we didn't cook. I mean, not that I do anyway, but we didn't cook. And we made it a point to go out and patronize, especially Black restaurants, but other restaurants. And so one of the best things for us was just exploring our city. Every one of those restaurants. If you have one that I have not done, let me know, because I feel like I have, with the COVID-19 that I picked up, I mean, we earned it. But I think it would just be inclusive of all of it. We love touring and eating.
You actually rattled off the three that I was going to say. So it's Science Center, Aquarium, and Port. So I have a 4-year-old. So that wherever he tells us to go, and it's often those three places, that's our favorite place to go as family.
What about the museums?
It is. And I was going to say, it's so funny hearing it. And I think our museums, especially some of the African-American, you got the Reginald Lewis, the National Great Blacks and Wax, Frederick, I mean, you could go on and on. That's one of the things that make our city so amazingly great. I mean, we're talking about the ones that are a little bit more active, because when you have some little ones, looking at some of the things and reading is not that. But as we've grown, I think that it's something for everybody here.
I think for those who might be looking to go to some of the free events at the higher education institutions here, if they go to the Economic Alliance Greater Baltimore's website, after you get past all of the Baltimore's number one in this and number one in that, number one in this and number one in that, you'll be able to find some tourist attractions that you can also look into. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Delali and Shelonda. You've been fabulous. And to all of the guests that were here with us tonight, I'm so sorry that Troy couldn't make it and that you had to put up with me.
I think you're trying to
You're
take
great.
over, right? I don't know, Troy.
But before we end, I would like all of my colleagues from TEDCO, if you please can raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. So we have, since we're taping, I want to make sure that we have their names. Keep your hands up. So we have Jack, we have Ann, we have Tim, we have Frank, we have Cassie, we have Lisa, we have Griffin, we have Hal, we have Artie. Bob didn't raise his hand, but he's the chair of the Maryland Innovation Initiative, so we counting him too. Mary didn't raise her hand, but she's on the board of the Maryland Innovation Initiative. Who else did I miss that's directly tied to TEDCO? I know it sounded like it was half the room, but it wasn't. But thank you so much for joining us tonight.
One person I did want to shout out that's in TEDCO, and he's been, your new chair of the board with Omar.
Oh, yes.
Omar Muhammad, who is located at Morgan State
Thank you.
University.
I was going to get in trouble. Shelonda's she's trying to save my job. So we just made a national announcement of our new chair of the board for TEDCO. As like Shelonda was saying, is Omar Muhammad, and he's with Morgan State University, her alma mater. So she was making sure we didn't mess up. All right, is there anything else that we need to say before we turn off the cameras? Nope. Again, thank you so much. We're going back to networking.
Thank you all.
Thank you.